And we are back for prepping for winter with the Theon sample chapter. Let's get right into part 3. To his wounded or his ravens? Both, your grace. Both. Stannis snapped the word out. A maester's raven flies to one place and one place only. Is that correct? The maester mopped sweat from his brow with his sleeve. Not entirely, your grace. Most, yes. Some few can be taught to fly between 2 castles. Such birds are greatly prized. And once in a very great while, we find a raven who can learn the names of 3 or 4 or 5 castles and fly to each upon command. Birds as clever as that come along only once in 100 years. Stannis gestured at the black birds in the cages. These 2 are not so clever, I presume. No, your grace. Would that it were so. Now here we get some fascinating talk about ravens. We finally learn definitively how ravens work. They generally only fly to one place, so I guess after they're used, they must be shipped via cage to where you want to get a communication from. Ravens essentially just fly home to wherever they are raised. However, some ravens are two-way ravens. I imagine they start feeling that 2 places are home and start going in between. Now Tybald says that two-way ravens are quite valuable, but really they shouldn't be. A batch of regular ravens enables two-way communication. I could only see a two-way raven really being useful to a maester who's trying to communicate secretly without the house knowing. Constantly sending out cages of ravens to a location might alert the Lord. Now a two-way raven wouldn't be any use to Tybald right now as Stannis is on the move. However, the existence of two-way ravens would be useful for, say, Winterfell and Castle Black, or Winterfell and the Last Hearth, or the Last Hearth in White Harbor. Actually, White Harbor has a Lannister maester, so probably not there. And finally, we learn about the super rare multi-locational raven that can fly to 3, 4, or 5 locations, but they only come around once in 100 years. Now, when we think about ravens and where they can fly, we have to think about a couple other factors. Stannis remarks that these 2 ravens aren't so clever, but in fact, these 2 ravens seem to be skin-changed, probably by Bran and Bloodraven. So these ravens, in fact, are clever enough to fly wherever they want. It's actually kind of a funny situation when you think about it. Bloodraven had told Bran that the 2 of them were super special green seers, 1 in a million. Stannis ends up pointing to these super special green seers and unknowingly says they aren't special at all. Now besides skin changing, we must keep white ravens in mind. White ravens are said to be smarter than black ravens, and somehow they're able to find all of those different castles even though they seem to be raised at the Citadel. Keep in mind Shireen, who had hung around Maester Crescent all the time, had never seen a white raven. If white ravens were trained to go home like black ravens, Crescent would have been raising some white ravens there as well, but he wasn't. So white ravens are super special, and we don't really know how they work or their abilities, but a bunch of them are being released around now because it's close to the first day of winter. Now all this raven talk is essential when we're talking about the Pink Letter and who might have authored it. With white ravens, skin-changed ravens, and multi-locational ravens around, it really opens up the possibilities on who the author is and where they're located. Although I have argued that Mance Rayder sent the Pink Letter from Winterfell, I will say I'm very open to the possibility that other people did it. Say Stannis, or Theon, or Horsebane Umber. There's very good arguments for each of them. Tell me then, where are these 2 trained to fly? Maester Tybald did not answer. Theon Greyjoy kicked his feet feebly and laughed under his breath. Caught. Answer me. If we were to loose these birds, would they return to the Dreadfort? The king leaned forward. Or might they fly for Winterfell instead? Maester Tybald pissed his robes. Theon could not see the dark stains spreading from where he hung, but the smell of piss was sharp and strong. Now this passage fully reveals that Stannis has figured out that Tybald was informing for the Boltons on Stannis' location. But I do wonder if there's a mistake in the text. Stannis asks if the ravens will return to the Dreadfort or, dun-dun-dun, Winterfell. Of course, ravens returning to the Dreadfort would be just as bad as Winterfell. Both castles are held by the Boltons, and the Dreadfort would just in turn notify Winterfell. Perhaps our author meant to write Carhold or Winterfell. It's rather curious that Theon notes that Tybald pissed himself based on only the smell. Keep in mind, Theon himself smells overwhelmingly of urine, and is told so right before his escape from Winterfell. It's a bit weird. Perhaps it's symbolic of Theon becoming Ramsay's dog? And dogs have a really good sense of smell? I'm not sure. Maester Tybald has lost his tongue, Stannis observed to his knights. Godry, how many cages did you find? 3, your grace, said the big knight in the silvered breastplate. One was empty. Your Grace, my order is sworn to serve. I know all about your vows. What I want to know is what was in the letter you sent to Winterfell. Did you perchance tell Lord Bolton where to find us? Now here we begin to see what Stannis is up to. Again, neither Theon nor Jon's letter outed Tybald, so Stannis likely knew he was the Dreadfort Maester from the beginning because Stannis studies household makeups and was raised by a Maester. So the big question is, why didn't Stannis out Tybald earlier? It seems Stannis wanted the Boltons to find out where he was. It would explain why he was hanging out in the same village for 19 days. Stannis wants Bolton men to come to him. In fact, later on he says as much. Sire, round-shouldered Tybald drew himself up proudly. The rules of my order forbid me to divulge the contents of Lord Arnulf's letters. Your vows are stronger than your bladder, it would seem. Your Grace must understand. Must I? The king shrugged. If you say so, you are a man of learning after all. I had a maester on Dragonstone who was almost a father to me. I have great respect for your order and its vows. And this is another interesting passage. Tybald claims he is bound to Arnulf Karstark because of his vows, but Stannis knows exactly what maester vows are all about because he was raised by a maester. So Stannis knows Tybald is lying. Tybald is bound to serve the realm and the Dreadfort, not Karstark. Now it should be noted that Stannis says he has great respect for the maester vows. This essentially means that by allowing Tybald into his host, Stannis knew that Tybald was vow-bound to betray him and report to Roose Bolton. I really quite enjoy seeing the ghost of Cresson helping Stannis. It reminds me of how often the ghost of Viserys helps Daenerys. Sir Clayton doesn't share my feelings, though. He learned all he knows from the wines of Flea Bottom. Were I to put you in his charge, he might strangle you with your own chain or scoop your eye out with a spoon. Only the one, your grace, volunteered the balding knight, him of the winged pig. I'd leave t'other. How many eyes does a maester need to read a letter? Asked Stannis. One should suffice, I'd think. I would not wish to leave you unable to fulfill your duties to your lord. Roose Bolton's men may well be on their way to attack us, even now. However, you must understand if I skimp on certain courtesies. I will ask you once again, what was in the message you sent to Winterfell? The maester quivered. I'm a map, your grace. So here we find out that Clayton Suggs comes from Flea Bottom. So like Davos, his house seems to be a new house. I imagine someone told him something like, "You'll be a knight when pigs fly," and he took it as a sigil. Despite Suggs being a horrible human being, his chosen sigil makes me like him a bit. Anyway, there's a lot of talk about taking out eyes, but only one eye. How many eyes does a maester need to read a letter? There are lots of one-eyed characters in our story, but the riddle makes me think of Bloodraven. How many eyes does Lord Bloodraven have? And Bloodraven is likely sitting right there in the cage. So here we find out that definitively, yes, Stannis understands that Tybald has loyalty to Roose Bolton, and that Tybald did send Stannis' location in the form of a map, which, as we said, is likely exactly what Stannis wanted. Interestingly, Stannis tells us that he wants Tybald alive to fulfill his duties. It may be that Stannis wants to use Tybald later to send misinformation back to Winterfell. The king leaned back in his chair. "Get him out of here," he commanded. "Leave the ravens." A vein was throbbing in his neck. "Confine this grey wretch to one of the huts until I decide what's to be done with him." "It will be done," the big knight declared. The maester vanished in another blast of cold and snow. Only the Knight of the Three Moths remained. Stannis glowered at Theon where he hung. "You are not the only turncloak here, it would seem. Would that all the lords in the Seven Kingdoms had but a single neck." So Stannis has Tybald taken away, but the ravens are left with him. I'm not certain if this is because he doesn't trust the ravens with anyone else, or if he plans on using them himself. We find out that Stannis does trust prisoners to be kept in other places, but not Theon. Theon is clearly important, and we see Stannis scowl at him again. Now Stannis talks about Arnulf Karstark being a turncloak, however the causation is off a bit. He says this right after talking to Tybald, as if the maester confirmed the Karstark treachery. But we know that Stannis certainly knew the Karstark treachery earlier. Jon's letter would have told him, but even before that, he must have known when he saw the Dreadfort Maester arrive with the Karstarks. But I would guess that Stannis had figured that the Karstarks were false friends from the very beginning. The Karstarks recommended to Stannis that he attack the Dreadfort. After Jon tells Stannis what a crappy plan that is, Stannis may have figured that it was a trap and deduced that the Karstarks were false friends. Now, Stannis appears to be very angry with a vein throbbing in his neck. However, if Tybald has done exactly as Stannis has planned, I would say he should be happy rather than angry. Also, Stannis being confident about his military situation is also at odds with him being angry. Then again, he also believes that all of the lords of Westeros are against him. Stannis' emotions are just all over the map. He must be feigning some of these emotions, it's just hard to tell which. He turned to his knight. Sir Richard, whilst I am breaking fast with Lord Arnulf, you are to disarm his men and take them into custody. Most will be asleep. Do them no harm unless they resist. It may be they did not know. Question some upon that point, but sweetly. If they had no knowledge of this treachery, they shall have the chance to prove their loyalty. He snapped a hand in dismissal. So despite appearing angry and just saying that everyone was against him, and despite being rather hard on Theon, Stannis acts very measured in his next move. He directs Richard Horp to take the Karstark men into custody carefully, without harming them, and wants them questioned, but not in a torturous way. It's a very smart, well-thought-out move, and not what one would expect from a man with a throbbing vein in his neck who just expressed his desire to execute all the lords of Westeros. Again, Stannis' emotions are all over the map. He is calm and measured immediately after being angry and volatile. Send in Justin Massey. Another knight Theon knew when Massey entered. This one was fair, with a neatly trimmed blonde beard and thick straight hair, so pale it seemed more white than gold. His tunic bore the triple spiral, an ancient sigil for an ancient house. I was told your grace had need of me, he said from one knee. Stannis nodded. You will escort the Braavosi banker back to the wall. Choose 6 good men and take 12 horses. To ride or eat? The king was not amused. I want you gone before midday, sir. Lord Bolton could be on us any moment, and it's imperative that the banker return to Braavos. You shall accompany him across the narrow sea. So next Justin Massey enters. He is the other Wrong Way Ranger who we spent a great deal of time with in the Asha chapters. Massey is not a bad guy, but clearly self-interested and wants a lordship. He first wanted to marry Val and have Winterfell, and then started going after Asha because he wanted the Iron Isles. Massey's big problem is he's almost too rational. He sees Stannis' cause as doomed, or at least he's been led to believe that Stannis' cause is doomed, like we the reader have been. Keep in mind, he and Richard Horp were peas in a pod in A Dance with Dragons until Stannis' long march to Winterfell. Justin Massey began to have doubts, while Richard Horp's resolve stayed strong. Massey now seems a bit on the outside, but there's a bit of a chicken or the egg situation with that. Has Massey been pushed out because he's had doubts, or did he gain doubts because he's been pushed out? So Massey seems to have Valyrian features, which may explain why his house declared for Stannis. Stonedance is in the Crownlands, but it's in close proximity to Dragonstone and Driftmark. It may be that House Massey is intermarried with the Velaryons and the Celtigars, and felt they should follow these houses into war. Now Justin Massey is entrusted with an incredible task, really. He is to escort Tycho Nestoris back to Braavos, represent Stannis, and hire an army. Massey is a really odd choice considering just a few hours ago we saw him calling Stannis' cause doomed to such a degree that Stannis' second-in-command, Richard Horp, questioned his loyalty and threatened him. So Massey is not really the man to be trusted with such a colossal task. It's off. It's also weird that Massey is to take 12 horses when his party is only 10 people. It's Justin Massey, 6 men, Tycho Nestoris, Jane Poole, and Alysanne Mormont. I'm not sure who the 2 extra horses are for. If there's to be a battle, my place is here with you. Your place is where I say it is. I have 500 swords as good as you or better, but you have a pleasing manner and a glib tongue, and those will be of more use to me at Braavos than here. The Iron Bank has opened its coffers to me. You will collect their coin and hire ships and sell swords. A company of good repute if you can find one. The Golden Company would be my first choice, if they are not already under contract. Seek for them in the disputed lands if need be, but first hire as many swords as you can find in Braavos. Send them to me by way of Eastwatch. Archers as well. We need more bows. Sir Justin's hair had fallen down across one eye. He pushed it back and said, The captains of the free companies will join a lord more readily than a mere knight, your grace. I hold neither lands nor title. Why should they sell their swords to me? Go to them with both fists full of gold dragons, the king said in an acid tone. That should prove persuasive. 20,000 men should suffice. Do not return with fewer. Wow, so this is a whole lot of weird. So we should note that Justin Massey is a man with his doubts about the Stannis cause. And he is a man who is known for spending money on hookers. On top of this, he is a self-interested man. He is a man who has been begging Stannis for a lordship and begs him here again. The point is, Justin Massey is not a man who loves Stannis for being Stannis, or even a man who loves the Red God. Justin Massey is in it for Justin Massey. Not that that makes him a bad guy, he's just not a super loyal follower. He shouldn't be anyone's first choice for this mission, and yet, Stannis entrusts all of his fortune with him. Now Stannis says Massey is the man for the job because Massey has a glib tongue. Massey protests and says that a landless knight like him is not in fact persuasive, so Stannis replies that money is persuasive. Okay, if it's all about money and not personal persuasiveness, why Massey? Stannis tasks Massey with hiring a sellsword company with a good reputation, but also tells him that he needs 20,000 swords. The largest company in the world is the Golden Company, and they only have 10,000. And the Golden Company was famously in a contract with Myr and not available. All of these facts Stannis would certainly know about. In fact, 20,000 men may be close to all the remaining sellsword companies in the world, and that's not even considering the fact that most of these men would not be reputable. To complete the task of getting 20,000 men, Massey would need to travel to Braavos, then the Disputed Lands, and likely several other free cities to collect dozens of sellsword companies. At best, this task would take years, and at worst, it's simply impossible. Stannis may get a few Braavosi sellswords out of Massey, but after that, Stannis will likely never see Massey again. Massey will probably end up partying it up in a brothel, or end up lost in the Disputed Lands. So what the hell is Stannis up to? I mean, I could see him wanting to get rid of Justin Massey because Massey's been a real Debbie Downer about the campaign. But why sabotage his own ability to get sellswords? It's very suspicious. And this is on top of the suspicious, overly sincere contract in blood. Stannis seems to be getting a huge loan from the Iron Bank, and then promptly flushing that loan down the toilet. To what end? Is this a distraction? Is he trying to bankrupt the Iron Bank? Is he hoping the bank will seek repayment from someone else? Did he only want something from Tycho in the short run, and felt the contract would help with that? It's all quite perplexing, but later we'll get into Tycho's gifts, other than Theon. Sire, might I speak freely?
So long as you speak quickly.
Your Grace should go to Braavos with the banker.
Is that your counsel? That I should flee?
The king's face darkened.
That was your counsel on the Blackwater as well as I recall. When the battle turned against us, I let you and Horp chivvy me back to Dragonstone like a whipped cur.
The day was lost, Your Grace. Now, although Asha and Richard Horp clearly knew that Justin Massey was a wishy-washy supporter, one could argue that Stannis didn't know that Massey was wishy-washy. Well, right here, Massey reveals his true questioning colors to Stannis. He wants Stannis to flee. Keep in mind, Stannis fully knows what that means. Massey gave the same advice to flee on the Blackwater because, in Sir Justin's own words, the day was lost. So by the same logic, Sir Justin is fully admitting that he thinks the day is lost again, and Stannis is probably going to die. Now this is interesting. Massey thinks Stannis is going to die, and of course we already know that the pink letter pushes the idea that Stannis is dead. Whether true or feigned is unknown. The point is, if Justin Massey makes it to the Wall, he will hear news that he was fully expecting, that Stannis is dead. At that point, knowing Massey, he would likely try to take Shireen to Braavos with him. He was ordered to put her on the throne. If Shireen is dead, I'm not sure what Massey would do. Flee, probably? The bigger question is what Tycho Nestoris would do. Honor the contract of a dead man and try to help Massey put Shireen on the throne? Forget the whole thing? And what if Shireen is dead? It's hard to say. And if Stannis is faking his own death, is Tycho part of it? The point of all of this is the more we examine Stannis' actions, the more secretive and perplexing they appear. He signs a contract with the Iron Bank that may almost immediately become void with the pink letter, and then he sends with this contract a knight who lacks the faith and obedience to really bring the contract to fruition. We really have to question whether Stannis has any interest in the Iron Bank's money. And that's all for now. We'll continue on in Theon I Part 4. See you then.